Grandchildren, grandparents. Grandparents many times like to take a really active role in raising their grandchildren. But with today's blended family, sometimes that gets to be difficult, especially when divorce occurs. The grandparents may find themselves on the back shelf, not having an opportunity to see their grandchildren. Some states have now tried to deal with that and passed laws that allow grandparents to have visitation rights. Hawaii is one of those states. Passed a statute that said grandparents can petition for visitation rights when they're not being allowed to see their grandchildren. And that brings us to this week's case. In this week's case, it involved a woman who divorced her husband, who was the son of grandparents who are now not being allowed to see the grandchildren. The grandparents petitioned the court and said, we'd like to have visitation of our own grandchildren. It's allowed under the statute here. Court looked at it and said, hey, yeah, I think that should be allowed. The statute provides for it, and allowed it. Mother, however, said, no, 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 I don't want this to happen. And I think that the statute is unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional because I, as a parent, have a right to raise the kids the way I want to raise the kids, and when you allow somebody else, even though they're blood relatives, to come along and have visitation rights and influence the way the kids are being raised, you're implying that I'm a lousy parent. Therefore, unless you show I'm doing something wrong here, they shouldn't be allowed visitation rights without my permission. Went up to the Hawaii Supreme Court. Hawaii Supreme Court looked at this and said, you are absolutely right. Grandparents cannot have forced visitation rights unless they show some harm is happening to the grandchildren that requires them to become involved in child rearing. And that, as a result, meant that she, the mother of these children, had control over who would be visiting those children. Okay, we see how the law changes, how the law moves depending on what's taking place in our society. Our society is constantly changing. We've talked about visitation rights in the past here on our legal video blog. We'll be bringing you these stories so that you understand how the law is changing and what's happening so you can make the law work in your life. I'm David Allen.